Hey, what is going on? It is Wednesday. We're going to be talking through some Liverpool news stories. You can interact with them. Really, really easy for you to do that. Just use the live show chat here on YouTube, and the best ones I will highlight. Best, most funny, most interesting, most insightful. Any questions, anything. Like, for example, here, more I'll go. Who is one of our members who just says, yo, what's happening? Mohammed says, how's it, guys? And Gramfoot Music says, hola. ¿Qué tal? Muy bien? Sí, gracias. Terrible. I've done I had a terrible go at German on the Bite Size podcast today, and there's a mixed attempt at Spanish for you. I'll see if I can end on French before I'm done. I'll have exhausted. I'll try English as well at some point. Right, we've got some news stories and plenty of things to discuss. Obviously, the headline is around Germany's interest in Jurgen Klopp. We've got some really good news on that, so I'll come to that last because I want to end on a high. There are some other bits and pieces around that as well, but yeah, feel free throughout this just to get involved. In fact, one here at the back, Henry Hale. Paul, what do you think of Dan's hope for Xabi as next manager in 18 months? I hope that Jurgen Klopp signs a contract extension before, if I'm being perfectly honest. I don't know. It's interesting, isn't it? Because a year ago, I was thinking, well, are we living in the past of a future that has Steven Gerrard as Liverpool manager? And the answer to that was no. No, we weren't. But of course, we didn't quite know that at the time. So yeah, look, Xabi's having a good time so far with Leverkusen. It will be interesting to see how that progresses. I've had this theory of late, and apologies if this is a bit of a sidetrack, but you know, whatever, we're here, aren't we? About managers who move to the Premier League, and I was thinking about Ange Postecoglou, and I was thinking about Iraola as well, and how many examples are there of managers who've come into the Premier League, gotten lots of kudos for what they've done in the Premier League, and then moved to another better Premier League club and continue to succeed, or gone above and beyond and succeeded. Now, there might be really obvious examples. I've not put loads of this is the beginning of a thought. So if anyone's got some examples for me of managers who made their name managing in the Premier League and then jumped up to a better club and then flourished. Now, like, Eddie Howe might be considered an example of this, but I don't think just getting into the Champions League is enough. Where I'm driving with this is, I see how much fun the Spurs fans are having with Ange, and I do wonder if, like, it depends how far he goes with them, because I think their ceiling is a lot lower than Liverpool's. I think that's not me saying anything outlandish there, really, is it? Liverpool are just a much, much, much bigger football club than Tottenham Hotspur. So is there a point where someone else comes knocking for him down the line? And it got me wondering about, does your style of play kind of get figured out? You know, if you can come in as a manager at a lower side and you kind of take the league by storm, but then when you come to move it up, you know, Jurgen Klopp came in, it was fresh, what he was bringing to Liverpool and what he was bringing to the league in its own way. Old Jota here says Rodgers, sort of. Pochettino, well, yes, but no, because what's Pochettino done? Pochettino was the Tottenham manager, but has he gone above and beyond? I mean, you know, he won a couple of trophies with PSG, but I mean, in the Premier League, so far, so bad for him at Chelsea, but it's too early. It's too early to say that. In fact, actually, there's the other example that you could throw in with that is obviously De Zerbi. If then De Zerbi gets a higher level job where the expectations are different, and again, people have got a bank of evidence to look at what is you know, his game's going to be like. And I know you can do that with any manager in any previous club, so that, you know, people will have watched Dortmund countless times to get a feel for Klopp, but there's a difference when your players have played against it and the different leagues, and you have to change things. KJ is saying Marco Silva, really? Nope. Oh yeah, Matty Lewis says Lampard, and then says a joke, obviously. Fair. Yeah, interesting. Interesting stuff. Regardless, yeah. So I'm just 2 years older than Klopp. Yeah, but it's not about age. It's about, like, and I will trust that is a fact, because I'm not going to Google it. but more, it's just your enthusiasm for the job, isn't it? You know, because I think everyone's got this in their head that was one more extension from Jurgen Klopp, and then he's going to get to, is it 2026 as his contract expire? Or whatever. Is it 25 or 20? Yeah, it's 26, right? His contract expires in 2026. Anyway, if I'm wrong, let me know. I do remember Alex Ferguson having this a few times. He was meant to leave at the end of 2002. But it's quite a famous thing where Champions League finals in Glasgow that season, and there was a sense that he was going to go win one more European Cup and then retire on a high. And it never did, and he goes on and, you know, wins countless other trophies for them after the fact. But yeah, it is very interesting. Look, I don't really want to get totally lost in the let's live in 2 years from now where Jurgen Klopp's not Liverpool manager anymore, because that's a dark timeline pretty much no matter what happens. Sorry, Riley, here's a good point. Actually, sorry, I apologise. Yeah, Pochettino started at Southampton. That's actually, yes, okay, good. I'll have that. I think that's probably one of the better examples of it. Yeah, I apologise for misinterpreting that one. I'd totally forgotten that. Totally and utterly forgotten that. And plenty of people talking about the Zerbi as well. Anyway, Jurgen Klopp gave his opinion. This is actually, I think this was prior to the international break, but it's come back to the forefront now. This is Anfield. I've written an article about the return of Liverpool's South American players. Jurgen Klopp has concerns over the 48-hour turnaround for 4 players before Wolves. You can see because he's got a concerned look on his face. Effectively, I'm going to get to the meat of this one because there's a lot of bits and pieces in this. But obviously, we know Liverpool play Wolves at 12:30 on Saturday, which is the early kickoff. Now, there are a number of Liverpool South American players. They've now finished playing their games, but out of interest, Jurgen Klopp said, now international break and pretty much 48 hours after our South Americans play somewhere on the other end of the world, we will play against Wolverhampton Wanderers. So it will be a tough one, but we have to make sure we are ready and we will give it our all. So, yes, Alexis McAllister and Darwin Núñez played last night at 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. respectively against Bolivia and Ecuador. More on the Darwin Núñez stuff in a second, by the way, on that. Diaz as Colombia faced Chile at 1:30 a.m. this morning, and Alisson's Brazil played Peru at 3 a.m. this morning. So, obviously, time zones, you know, reflecting. It's if you're then jumping back into English time, that's today pretty much written off. You're then getting back in. They'll be getting back into England, I guess, like today at some point, probably going to bed, and then you've got Thursday, and then yes, the squad will travel to Wolves on Friday ahead of the Saturday midday clash, meaning the South Americans are likely to be on Merseyside for less than 36 hours before they're on the road again, once their travel time has been factored in. What do we think? What do we think Jurgen will do as a result? So I was talking to Chris Bascom and John Bradley about this yesterday, and they were saying how Jurgen, they reminded me that Jurgen tends to favour keeping them under wraps a bit if they've done a lot of travelling. And, we see a lot of lads who are favoured who've been around to train through periods of that international break. But yeah, it'd be interesting to know what would you do? And I'll follow up because there's a little Darwin Núñez story to follow up with in a second. Yes, in fact, there we go, because Mohammed Threshi here says apparently Núñez has an issue. He does. That issue, again, this is Anfield, who are saying that Darwin Núñez was subbed off with muscular difficulties, but there's been no injury confirmed off the back of it. So Marcelo Bielsa is the new Uruguay boss, and basically he was substituted at half-time in the defeat yesterday to Ecuador. But it said it came after hints and training that he would not be part of the starting lineup, but after a dominant display in a 3-1 victory over Chile, he was retained. But yes, he was only given 45 minutes before being replaced by Christian Oliveira. Speaking to reporters after the game, Bielsa claimed Núñez had been brought off due to muscular difficulties. However, there was no indication of a genuine injury for the striker, with his withdrawal in Quito suggested to be more due to fatigue. Bielsa explained that Núñez was unable to fulfill his high-intensity duties up front due to exertions of 3 days previous. There is some quotes from this one, which I'll find, but it looked a bit messy when I was scrolling. It seemed convenient to me to substitute him because he couldn't keep up with the game when we had to press. Yeah, so basically that is that. So yeah, Darwin would be, with the travel involved and then being fatigued, Liverpool will have to be very careful with him because, you know, the worst thing you could do at this point, I think we've got to be careful how we manage him. I think Liverpool have to be careful with his confidence. I think they've managed to reboot his confidence in a huge way, but so you have to balance. Like I personally, it depends how Wolves would approach the game. If Wolves are going to sit in and dig deep, then I wouldn't be against starting Gakpo anyway. But if they were both fully fit, it would be a brave person not to start Núñez, given the form that he's been in. But now that you've got a little excuse to say, look, mate, we just got to be careful. You know, we don't need any injuries of our own making here. I'm not against the idea of just keeping him on the bench and giving maybe half an hour at the back end. So yeah, let me see. We've got a few comments on that. Adam here says, no need to rush them. We have great depth. Worst case scenario, we have them on the bench. Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree on that. And Adam following up saying, Jota and Gakpo both scoring on international duty wouldn't be the worst thing to start both. Matty Lewis says Jota must start after that Portugal game. And yeah, Angela Brie says Jota, Gakpo, Salah front line, Jones, Sobo, and the Japanese guy, can't remember his name. Defence, who knows? Brilliant. It's Wataru Endo, mate, just to be clear. Just to clarify, I mean, you've put it in, so therefore you've put it, the answer have been put on screen. A cheeky little Google would have maybe answered that question for you. Just out of interest, if I type in Japanese Liverpool, don't put this on screen because in case I said it's wrong. Japanese Liverpool midfielder. What does it come up with? Oh, I've typed in midfielder as well. Wataru Endo joins Liverpool. Top results. Okay, fine. That would have done you. That would have done you there, mate. Yes, so there you go. So yeah, some slight concerns over Darwin Núñez and his potential selection there. Good. Right, we're going to move things on. What fact, Wosif Isman says start Gravenberch, Jones, Elliott, Bradley, Quanta, Tsimikas and Doak in the Europa League. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a big conversation to be had next week, isn't it? And I think so much of what Liverpool choose to do this weekend will give us a clear indication of what happens next time out. But you've got an opportunity to go strong. I think you need to get your group up and running. You need 3 points on the board. Your away games are your home. You should be getting 9 points in all European groups from your home games alone. Now, Liverpool should be better than all the three teams that we're facing in this competition. However, there's just something to confidence and getting it up and running. So I think all those players will feature at some point in that game, and they might play more in the second and third and beyond. But I've got a sneaky feeling we'll play a stronger team in that first game. Right, sound. Okay, let's move things forward then. The Europa League squad. So this came out yesterday evening. Liverpool have named the 23-man squad. A couple of just interesting points on this, by the way. So Adrian hasn't been named. He was the one who didn't make the cut because there's a slight issue when it comes to you've got 17 non-homegrown slots in a European squad. Of the remaining positions, half of those then need to, I think it's 20, is it 25? I think 4 have got to be, I'll you know what, rather than me paraphrase it, why don't I just read it? As reported this by the Sandfield's David Lynch, Adrian has been omitted from the squad with only 17 A-list spots available, though a UEFA loophole could see him feature in the event of a long-term injury to Alisson or Kevin Kelleher. So yes, if we get a bad injury to them, you're allowed to call up a replacement goalkeeper, so that's the thing. The deadline passed for clubs to provide their squad list to UEFA, with a maximum of 25 players permitted to be on the A list of players. A minimum of 8 of those spots must be allocated to locally trained players, and a maximum of 4 can be association trained. So yes, effectively there's a slight difference between being just homegrown and being homegrown from within your own club, which makes these things slightly more complicated. Teams can also register a limited number of players on their B list, which comprises of players born on or after January 1st, 2002, who have spent at least 2 years at their respective clubs. So this is another example where Liverpool weren't able to register Doak last year. They haven't been able to register Gordon or you have to put them on the A list if you're going to put them anywhere, because they've not been at Liverpool long enough at times to be classed. But yes, the restrictions left Klopp with a tough decision to make, as he was required to cut 1 player from his selection following the signing of Ryan Gravenberch. Vítězslav Jaros and Bobby Clark have both been listed on the squad page as part of the A list, with the former deemed to be a club-trained player, Jaros, and the latter association-trained Clark. Otherwise, no surprises in the squad to play in double headers with Lask, Union and Toulouse. So the squad in full, for those of you who are interested: Alisson, Kelleher, Jaros are the goalies. Defenders: Van Dijk, Konate, Gomez, Matip, Alexander-Arnold, Robertson and Tsimikas. The midfielders are Szoboszlai, McAllister, Thiago, Gravenberch, Jones, Endo and Clark. And forwards are Salah, Diaz, Gakpo, Nunes, Jota and Doak. Now, as mentioned, when people saw this, the immediate reaction was, well, where's Elliott? Where's Bajcetic? They don't need to be named on the A list, because they can be named on the B list, which means that there's a couple of other players who could feature, who are around the first team squad, who aren't in the A list, but are likely to be. They'll be in the matchday squads, and they will play games for us. Less so is Marcelo Pitaluga, you'd imagine, but he will be on that list, barring getting a loan move out. Jarell Quansah, Connor Bradley, Stefan Bajcetic and Harvey Elliott. And I said this on the Bite Size podcast, but those final 4 are all very, very likely to get good minutes in the Europa League this season. Particularly, I would suggest Bajcetic, Elliott and Bradley. And it's likely, Quansah, you might see something similar to that second team defence that we saw in pre-season games, which had Kostas Tsimikas playing as the inverted fullback from the left-hand side, with Quansah playing as the left-sided centre-half in that, which is a possibility. So yeah, good to see that Liverpool have got basically the full contingent of players that they were going to use are all able to be used in the Europa League, with the exception of Adrian. But the only way you'd use Adrian if there was a major goalkeeping injury crisis, and in that instance Liverpool are allowed to register him anyway. So yes, there is that. Henry Hale says Bobby Clark is an exciting addition. Like that a lot. I mean, look, in reality, I think that's just, again, that's creative accounting from Liverpool. If he'd been at the club a little bit longer, I think he would have just gone on the B list, but you need to have someone on there to register. So I think that's why he's on the A list, rather than he's definitely going to be playing games in that competition. I hope he does. I hope Liverpool are in a position where they can give Bobby Clark, because I agree. I think he's a really good footballer. I was really impressed with what I saw in pre-season from him, definitely. Adam says, Paul, are you heading out to Austria next week? I am. I'm going to the last game. I am very, very excited about that. There's a lot of travel involved, more than I perhaps would have liked for just a random group game. But yeah, I've said this. I made a big point about how I was dead excited for the Europa League because I love European travel. I love going to mad aways, and if it means I don't have to go to the Bernabeu and watch us lose again, that would be great. So yeah, I'm going to Lask. So yeah, look forward to that. I'm going to be doing some vlog stuff on my YouTube channel, and there'll be some clips and stuff going on the Redmen channel, of course, from that. So yeah. Right, okay, the big news story then. The Liverpool Echo have been reporting this one. Jurgen Klopp's agent speaks out on Germany job links as Liverpool future clarified. Yeah, I mean, they couldn't possibly have just put the entirety of the article in the headline, because then you'd have no need to go through it. This is by Tom Cavilla, who's their football trends writer. Right, Jurgen Klopp will not become the new manager of the German national team. The agent of the Liverpool boss has confirmed. Klopp had emerged as one of the possible candidates to replace Hansi Flick at the helm of the Mannschaft after the decision was made to relieve the former Bayern Munich coach of his duties following a recent 4-1 friendly defeat by Japan. The hilarity of Wataru Endo helping to cause that sacking. And then potentially leading to his club manager who signed him for Liverpool moving on would have been, gallows humour at best. But yeah. Anyway, linked with this post on several occasions over the years, speculation has intensified in recent days that this could be the time Klopp chooses to swap club football for country and take charge of Germany leading into next year's European Championship. Downplaying this possibility, however, Klopp's agent Mark Kozicki this evening told Sportschau Jurgen has a long-term contract with LFC and is not available for the national coaching position. So there you go. Done and dusted for now. Jurgen Klopp will not be taking up that role. And I'll be honest, look, there's a chance that he might take the Germany job at some point in the future. I think a lot of this stuff, how often do you really see top managers take national jobs? I think this is a bit of a lingering hangover from a lot of us playing champ and footy manager, maybe, where you just, after a while, you'd be like, Alexander saw the breadth of his kingdom, he wept, for there were no more worlds to conquer. Name the film. And then go on, I'll do the national team for a bit because that's a new challenge. Or like it's more seen as like, yeah, you go and conquer all of club football and then you go and dominate the international scene. I just think Klopp would be really bored. He'd be really bored. Now, he might see it as some sort of educational journey. He did want to go and take a bit of a gap year, didn't he, after leaving Dortmund and go and expand his mind and all that kind of stuff. Presumably sit in a forest and take loads of LSD, I don't know. But, maybe there's something in that, but it's not, it doesn't feel like his bag. I've said this before, I often felt about myself that, like, I see a future where I'd be that kind of guy who kind of potters around the house and, that needs paint. No, I'll go and paint that. I'll go and do a bit of nice work in the garden. And then lockdown happened and I basically played on my PlayStation and got fat. Some people like the idea of things more than the reality of it is what I'm driving at there. So yeah, I would suggest, in fact, we'll do a poll, if you don't mind, please, Joe. What do you think Jurgen Klopp is more likely to do in 2026 or whenever his contract expires? Take the national team job, take a break from football, move to another club, or extend his Liverpool contract? What do you think he's most likely to do? Right, we've got a few comments which I'll get through before we wrap up. Was lost, but now I'm found. Says RIP Europa League group. Liverpool will destroy it. I just want us to take it seriously. I really do. I put a tweet out around the end of the transfer window saying, what's your Europa 11? And you can do a Europa 11. If you think about it, you could have, obviously not at the moment because of defensive injuries, but you could technically have like Kelleher, you could have a back four of Tsimikas, Quansah, Matip, Gomez, midfield three of Endo, Gravenberch and Elliott, and a front three of you could have Diogo Jota, Darwin Núñez and Ben Doak as a front three if you wanted to. Maybe let's just do that. But I wonder whether we will just continue to treat it a bit like the Champions League, whereby you make 2 or 3. I think Champions League, it's like 2 or 3 changes they'd make from midweek to weekend. Maybe this is more like 4, but I don't think it'll be a full 11 swap. But then with your 5 substitutes, you then make more ready use of those. So yeah, there's that. Just in terms of the poll, it is a tie at the moment. Germany job is just 11%. Take another club job, 5%. Extend at Liverpool's just gone up. It was 42% to that one and 42% to take a break, but extend Liverpool is extending into the lead at the moment on that one. Get your votes in on that one if you do. Henry Hale says, could see Klopp going back to Dortmund someday in the very distant future? May want to beat Bayern for the title once or twice more. The thing to remember is Klopp's gone from Liverpool where it's the club where he's had the most resources and he's had the most support and he's got the most control over everything. I think people think there's like this like honourable notion of maybe going somewhere. I think if Mainz were like, he could go and have a fun year or two at Mainz later on in his career, maybe come out of retirement or something to do that. But I think if he goes somewhere, he's going to want to go somewhere where he's got at least the same resources as Liverpool. I just don't see why you'd go back to Dortmund. Nothing's changed. It's exactly the same as it was when he left, except they don't get to Champions League finals. So yeah, I think it's interesting. KJ here saying, to be honest, I don't want to see Alisson in the Europa League. I want to see Kelleher get those games. Yeah, we talked about this on the podcast. What do you think? What would you guys like to see? Do you think Kelleher should be given all of the cups? I would. I think this is a great opportunity to test him and see where he's at. Obviously, keep him happy as well, because he could be playing Premier League football. He could be playing European level football somewhere for a half decent team, I think, right now. And the other side of things is play him and increase his value. You know, I think he's a £30+ million goalkeeper there right now. You can cement that by getting some more European experience under his belt. To be perfectly honest, yeah, Hacks here just saying that point there would get his value up. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, actually, I mean, Klopp to Saudi, perhaps not, mate. But yeah, I mean that there is a slight possibility with the Klopp stuff, and maybe in a couple of years' time, when if the infrastructure's there and they understand, people have got their heads around how the money works, and there is all of a sudden a wealth of really good footballers there. A couple of years, you never know. Go and do a year or two there, maybe. Pressure off certainly if he was to do that. So yeah, it's an interesting one. Wosif here saying, I think he will take the Germany job after the World Cup 2026 if the job is available. And that's also the thing. We say it like these things are definitely going to be happening. Someone could come in and take that job now, be brilliant at the Euros, guide them to the World Cup, be really competitive at the World Cup, and then the offer's not on the table. And I think that's why you see this happen a bit sometimes, where you feel like managers' heads can be turned, because again, from our Champ Manager, Football Manager days, if you want the England job, you kind of take it when it comes up. You want the Germany job, you take it when it comes up. If you want a national team job, there's always national team jobs going, but unless you're like, I don't know, Carlos Queiroz, who just doesn't really give a shit and just wants to go manage somewhere and get paid quite well for it, I think, you know, the really top jobs don't come up very regularly. So yeah, that's why maybe there's a little bit of like, well, it's there. Am I interested now? And the good thing is, I think Klopp's building something. I think he's quite excited by the prospect at Liverpool. So I don't think it was ever really a goer, to be perfectly honest. But anyway, just to reiterate that his agent has shut that down. So yeah, that is that. Right, cool. You guys are all brilliant human beings, right? Who like Liverpool and want more Liverpool brilliant content in your lives. I think that makes all perfect sense. Come over, Jesus Christ, stupid webpage. Come and join us over on redmenplus.com right now. We've got tons of content. Chris has just put out a new deep dive show looking at Klopp's setup with the return of the games. We've got Expert Insight with Dave Powell, which has just gone out as well, looking at Liverpool's ownership setup and the director of football stuff. And I think this is the one in which he talks about the Qatari takeover rumours as well. But yeah, if you want to get closer on all things Liverpool, we've got documentaries, we've got interviews, we've got tons of absolutely amazing content on there. So go over to redmenplus.com, fill your boots, podcasts, videos, and the rest. And more importantly, there is a huge documentary series over on there, Bobby Firmino, Best in the World. So yeah, if you need to fill your life with happiness in the final few days of the international break, go and watch all 3 episodes of that and all the full interviews as well. It's brilliant. Right, that's it from me. You guys are boss. Continue to be boss, continue to be sound, and yeah, more to come from Redmen tomorrow. See you. Thank you so very, very much for checking out the video. If you enjoyed it, drop a like. The season is now well underway. If you need extra Redmen content, be it podcast, videos, documentaries, interviews, and general shows, fill your boots on redmenplus.com today.